So now you're wondering, well, we've discussed this framework of Porter, and it's a conceptual framework, and there is a lot of value to those conceptual frameworks. So typically when we analyze a case, we want to apply the framework that we've been discussing. So you remember that we did the Shark Tank example with Porter's 5 forces model. Now let's apply it to Zara and think about what is making them unique and how they're able to compete in the industry. So let's first talk about the threat of entry. How hard would it be for another company to just set up a shop next door and buy some clothing and get it on the racks? Well, there's probably low entry barriers for a company that might want to enter the industry right next door. Now, can it compete? That's going to be another question. So even though it's not necessary at a low level to invest a lot of capital in that store next door, you do get advantages of economies of scale, because if you're producing more of a good, of course, the cost of producing each unit item goes down. So you can make more, Zara is going to be able to make more margin off of each of the products that it sells compared to that store that gets set up next door. Now they're also going to have the designs faster, the newer designs faster, given their investment in technologies. So that's going to be an issue too. So a smaller new entrant is going to have a little bit difficulty in competing from a price point of view, but they could still offer some unique designs, and that maybe boutique type designs, and that could give them access to a market that otherwise would not be there. So that leads to the question in Porter's model about substitution. Now you recall that substitution means can you just get another item somewhere else very easily? Well, in this industry, substitution is extremely high because the customers can go choose alternate providers for their fashion needs and desires. So substitution is a definite issue. Now, maybe Zara has the ability to have those newer fashions faster, which makes substitution a little bit harder. That refers to that issue of the response lag that we've been talking about quite a bit, and allows them to compete in their space. So sometimes, and maybe in retail, and put yourself in this spot, do you need the newest fashion, or are you willing to buy something maybe last year's fashion because the price is better? So price issues could be a real factor in this type of environment. So in essence then, with this notion of substitution, the fact is that buyers have a lot of power in this industry, and customers have a wide access to a broad range of retailers. And now with the internet, they can make purchases, and that extends their power even further. Now the price wars that we see in retail are because there's increased availability of fashion items to the public, and the fashions are coming faster through the internet sites and that may be in the stores, and that allows the buyers to have huge influence on the market, because they're selecting new products on a regular basis and changing the dynamics of the competition. So the buyers demand continuous change, particularly within fashion. So it's really necessary to continue to provide new and innovative fashions all of the time on an ongoing basis, because your customers are likely to turn away from a particular brand if you don't have the newest in stock. So those issues are very important. Now, at the other end of the scale, let's think about the power of suppliers. Turns out the power of the suppliers within the fashion industry is fairly low. Many organizations, in fact, outsource their production to developing countries in order to keep costs really low. And that has some social implications too. So I think if you look around, some of the producers of some of the clothing have really gotten into trouble for issues like bad child labor types of situations. So thinking about this substitution of different suppliers, you really need to consider the broader strategic implications on those decisions. So organizations, though, like Zara, they really have a big opportunity because they can change suppliers quite a bit. They have a economy of scale. That allows them to drive prices down when they're dealing with suppliers because they can buy volume. Now that may allow them to reduce costs in certain instances, but it might be difficult, like I pointed out earlier, that the ethical behaviors of some of those third-party providers could have a lasting and negative effect. So that needs to be taken into account. So the question now, and the one that we're always going to get back to with every one of these cases, is can the information technologies that Zara relies on right now create sustainable competitive advantage for them into the future? And there's not going to be a clear answer to this. And I'm anxious to see your informed opinions now that you've looked through Porter's 5 forces and their implications on this industry. Will those 5 forces change? Will the technologies that Zara has adapted allow them to compete as the competition continues to heat up? I'll be watching on the discussion board as you deal with this question.